Hello, everyone. How would you like to equip yourself with the basic knowledge of real estate so you can understand it better? If you say yes, our topic for today is very interesting. It is entitled Real Estate Terminologies. But first, let me introduce myself. I am engineer and real estate broker Manuel Aringo Jr. from Cebu Best Homes Realty. We would like to help you understand the most common words and phrases in real estate. You can use these terms in your communications with your clients and fellow practitioners. And of course, mastery means more sales for you. I have prepared for you a virtual notebook, which I can send you a copy by email. And we are going to discuss here about 100 real estate terminologies. What is real estate? It is land and anything permanently attached to it, such as buildings. But how does this differ with the word property? Well, property is defined as something owned by a person. When used alone in real estate, it means real estate property. What is real estate broker? It's this: a duly registered and licensed natural person who, for a professional fee, commission, or other valuable consideration, acts as an agent of a party in real estate transaction to offer, advertise, solicit, list, promote, mediate, negotiate, or effect the meeting of the minds on the sale, purchase, exchange, mortgage, lease, or joint venture, or other similar transactions on real estate or any interest therein. So it's very clear that the new definition specifies the functions of a real estate broker. Real estate salesperson. A real estate salesperson is a duly accredited natural person who performs service for and in behalf of a real estate broker who is registered and licensed by the Professional Regulatory Board of Real Estate Service for or in expectation of a share in the commission, professional fee, compensation, or other valuable consideration. So this means that the salesperson has the same function with that of a broker. That's why we discussed a while ago the definition of a real estate broker, because you have the same function as a salesperson with that of a broker. And the salesperson gets a share of commission in exchange also of the supervision and guidance of the broker. Now, what's the difference between real estate salesperson and agent? Or we call it real estate agent. Sometimes it's confusing. Are they the same or different? Well, we have to define it. An agent is one who is entitled of the commission. Agent is not a position but a function. Whoever deals with the buyer directly, either broker or salesperson, is the agent of the buyer. What is real estate dealer? A real estate dealer shall refer to any person engaged in the business of buying and selling real properties on his own account as a principal. He is usually a joint venture partner. By law, those who can sell 6 or more properties per year are considered real estate dealers and therefore will have to pay a corresponding rate of tax. And what is real estate developer? A developer is one who buys land, finances real estate deals, builds or have builders build projects to create, imagine, control, and orchestrate the process of development from beginning to end. Okay? Attorney in fact. What is attorney in fact? He is an agent authorized to act on behalf of another person, but not necessarily authorized to practice law. Special power of attorney or SPA. Special power of attorney or SPA is not a person, but an authority given to a person. The person is called attorney in fact, not necessarily a lawyer. Many practitioners ask clients, "Sir, who will be your SPA?" What he is supposed to ask is, "Sir, who will be your attorney in fact?" Joint venture. Joint venture is where land owners extend their property as equity and the developer undertakes the preparation of all requirements and development needs at his own expenses, normally a profit sharing of the result. We call it JVC, Joint Venture Contract. If you know an owner of a large raw land which you believe can turn into a residential subdivision, 10 hectares or more, let me know. We can sell that to Santa Lucia or other developers and we can negotiate possibly for a joint venture with the owner of the land. Okay? I think it's good for you to know the difference between project selling and brokerage. Project selling means focusing on selling inventories of real estate developers or the exclusive marketing arms of developers. While brokerage is the act of the broker in meeting of the minds between parties. So this includes looking for listings from property owners as inventories for sale and finding buyers to buy the listings. Many prefer project selling because brokerage is double work with the same rate of commission. You have to find owners of properties to trust you with the properties for sale. He is your client. And then you have to find another client who will buy. This is your buyer. Whereas in project selling, all inventories are already existing. No need to find. And there is no hassle in the documentation process because the developer will do this for you. In brokerage, you need to do the documentation yourself. But the downside with project selling is that most properties for sale are pre-selling, which means longer time to wait for the commission. While brokerage is faster as the property is already built. Okay, so that's the difference between project selling and brokerage. What is the difference between contract and deed? A contract is an agreement in writing to do or not to do certain things, while deed is the act of signing legal document, especially one regarding the ownership of property or legal rights. mail communication, site tripping form, reservation agreement, or being present personally during the site tripping, or being present at the office when the buyer makes the reservation. These are all proof of your procuring costs. You must be careful because while you are planting, somebody else might harvest what you planted. The next word is community property. Community property means accumulated property by a husband and wife during their marriage becomes joint property even if it was originally acquired in the name of only one partner. Another name for community property is conjugal. This is the reason that we always require marriage certificate if a buyer wants to buy a property. The government will always protect both spouses because of this law. Married individuals cannot buy a property with only his or her name in the title. That's a different name. Separate property is the term for that, which allows separation of properties between spouses. But it's not here in the Philippines, except for prenuptial agreement and legal separation. So as a salesperson, how do you cite this law? To assure your buyer who is a paradox. So you can cite that, sir, in the Philippines, we have community property. So whatever happens, you are assured that you have 50% at least ownership of the property because of our law of community property. What is a title? A title is a proof, evidence, or monument of ownership. And there are three types of title. OCT, which means Original Certificate of Title, issued for the first time in pursuance to a decree. TCT, which is a Transfer Certificate of Title issued by the Register of Deeds. OCT is usually issued by LRA, Land Registration Authority, in pursuance of a decree, while TCT is issued by a Register of Deeds. Tax declaration and title should go together. This is now the definition of tax declaration. It is a property record maintained by government assessors showing the market and assessed values. But tax declaration is never a proof of ownership. It is only a document pertaining to tax assessment. But these two documents should always go together. Many properties only have tax declarations as owners claim they don't have the budget to apply for title or for some other reasons. But you should be very careful in dealing with properties with only tax declaration as document. If the title is changed due to the sale of the property, the tax declaration should also be changed in the name of the new owner. If not changed on time, there will be penalties. What is the difference between lead and prospect? Lead is a pathway or guide or information in finding a prospect. For example, if you receive inquiry in response to your ads, you got his name, contact number, email address, he is a lead. Or somebody refers to you someone who can be your buyer. He is providing the name and contact number. The person he referred is your lead. And what is a prospect? A prospect is a person who is in need, has the willingness, and can afford to buy. This means the lead becomes a prospect only when you have ascertained through your communications that he has the need, willingness, and can afford to buy. Buyer is one who is already engaged in any form of contract. So that's the difference between lead and prospect. Now let's talk about the difference between referrer and referral. Referrer is the person who informs you about a certain lead. One important role of a salesperson or broker is to network a lot of referrers who can inform you about certain leads, such as your friends and relatives, security guards of subdivisions, etc. Because prospects ask them and they cannot provide the information needed by your buyer. And what is referral? It is an act of directing a salesperson towards a particular lead or prospect. So if you are busy with one client and another client needs you, it's best to refer this to another salesperson whom you can get a referral fee than just delay and the client finds another salesperson by himself. Clients cannot wait for you. So this is now the difference between referrer and referral. What is RFO? RFO is a common term for a property that's already built. It is a short of ready for occupancy. This refers usually to the inventories of developers who have built house and lot and condominiums that were not sold during the preselling. The construction continued until they are completed and become ready for occupancy. You don't normally use RFO for houses and condominiums from brokerage because it's understood that they are all ready for occupancy. While pre-selling is to sell in advance of construction or to promote a product that is not yet in the market. Pre-selling is the most popular among brokers and salespersons because it is fast selling. It's fast selling because it's affordable. Buyers are treated like investors. Next is letter of intent. What is letter of intent? It is a letter addressed to the seller with no obligation required on the prospect buyer to push through. So, LOI is when the developer does not have license to sell yet, while reservation agreement is a contract between parties wherein the owner or developer binds himself to reserve the property for the other party to purchase. In brokerage, it usually uses earnest money agreement. The seller in brokerage is obligated to sell. It cannot back out without legal consequence. While reservation agreement, it is only a promise to sell in the future. So the developer can decide not to push through with the project. So that's the difference between reservation agreement and letter of intent. And in brokerage, earnest money agreement is commonly used. In my observation, many salespersons are confused with the difference between down payment and equity. This is the difference. The meaning of down payment is that it is the minimum amount required by the seller to bind himself to a contract. That's the meaning of down payment. While equity is the amount put up by the buyer on the property net of interest. So that is the difference in the definition. Many are confused with the difference between down payment and equity because at the start, they are the same. But as the buyer continues to pay monthly installment or amortization, his equity increases. The most popular down payment is 20% among developers. But for brokerage, the most prevalent is 30% down payment because the bank usually requires 30% equity, 70% loanable amount. So that's the difference between down payment and equity. Okay? I once made a sale of 5 million worth of house and land somewhere in Banawa. And it was a contract of sale because it was brokerage. The buyer and seller had a quarrel. They were contacting each other on their own. And I was informed by the seller that she wanted to back out. So my commission was at stake. I tried to search what are the consequences of backing out from a contract of sale. I found out that there is already a transfer of ownership. And so the seller cannot back out without consequences. So contract of sale is much safer on the part of the agent or broker. So in my case, I was able to save my commission because I diplomatically informed the seller that there might be consequences, and she was in fact uh, preparing to leave for abroad, and this might be the cause of the delay of such a plan. So contract of sale is safer because it protects you of any backing out from the seller. Contract to sell is a contract whereby the exclusive privilege to purchase is merely an executory contract in which there is no transfer of ownership. So this is the favorite of developers because they can back out and decide not to push through with the sale. But of course, they seldom back out because they are in the business of selling real estate. It's only when they find out that they made a wrong decision or when the government restrictions don't favor the development. The contract of sale, in the other hand, is a contract whereby the seller obligates himself to deliver a specific real property for buyer's payment on the property. So there is already a transfer of ownership, and sellers cannot back out without legal consequences. I'm sure that your prospect buyer will ask you lots of questions. And one of the most asked questions is about the price. You must therefore distinguish between total selling price and total contract price. What is total selling price, or TSP? It is the price excluding miscellaneous fees. What is total contract price? It is the price including miscellaneous fees. We call this TCP, total contract price. You need to understand what type of pricing the developer sets for buyers. Normally, developers call it TCP when miscellaneous expenses are included. But in the case of OPMC or Santa Lucia, it's different. The miscellaneous expenses are separated from the TCP. So, in effect, there are two contracts. One for the property and the other one is for the miscellaneous expenses. What is miscellaneous fees? Miscellaneous fees are fees incurred in the transfer of title into buyer's name. Sometimes it's called transfer fee or processing fee or closing costs. Usually, this is the term used abroad, closing costs. How does it differ with move-in fees? Move-in fees are required by the seller or developer before the buyer can move in to comply basic requirements, such as payment for water connections, electricity, and insurances. Sometimes it includes one-time homeowners association membership. Now, it's best to mention this to your buyer even at the start of the transaction, such as during the reservation agreement, because many buyers would think that these are hidden fees if you delay to inform, and it may come as a surprise. As a salesperson, you need to undergo site orientation. How does it differ with site tripping? Well, site orientation is the familiarization of the project by visiting the actual site, while site tripping is the act of assisting the prospect and presentation of the property in the actual site, together with a buyer. Site orientation is a must. You will be assisting your buyer, and so you need to know exactly where the lots are. You also need to find the best route towards the actual site. With OPMC, you can book a vehicle in advance for your buyer. But if your buyer brings his vehicle, offer that you can ride with him. What is deed of absolute sale? A deed of absolute sale is a deed of conveyance, where the sale is not subject to any condition and where the transfer of ownership is complete and irrevocable. When the property is fully paid, the deed of sale shall prevail over contract to sell, and it is the final document to prove ownership, which is required for the transfer of title. If the buyer has not fully paid, this can still be signed by the seller, provided there is a letter of guarantee from a bank. What is Product Knowledge Seminar? It is a seminar or webinar conducted by developers to equip real estate practitioners with knowledge of their projects. So take advantage of product knowledge seminars. We call this PKS. By attending regularly, on scheduled dates. You will learn a lot of knowledge which you can use in servicing your buyers. What is proof of billing? Proof of billing is an evidence of address on the basis of utility bills. Proof of billing is very important because all legal communications by the developer to the buyer can be directed to this address. You need to ensure that this will be submitted by the buyer. What is proof of income? Proof of income is an evidence of income on the basis of payslip, certificate of employment, or ITR, income tax return, etc. Proof of income is the most common, and it is usually payslip, and it must be original. If certificate of employment or job contract, the compensation must be indicated. What is loan value? Loan value is the amount in which the lender is willing to lend against an asset used as collateral. When a loan applicant applies for loan, the property will be appraised, and the lender, like a bank or pag-ibig, puts up a certain amount of loan value for such property after appraisal. The difference will be the equity of the buyer. What is loan difference? Loan difference is the difference between approved loan amount and the equity paid by the buyer. Sometimes the loan value is lower, as it may also depend on the income of the buyer and other risk factors. So when the loan value is lower than expected, there is going to be a loan difference, which the buyer must be made to understand to pay the difference before the loan can be approved. What is the meaning of mortgage? Mortgage is a legal agreement in which a person borrows money to buy a property and pays back the money over a number of years. In short, it is called loan. The title must be in the name of the buyer. Assumption of mortgage is to undertake the liability for payment of an existing mortgage for the purpose of owning the mortgage property. The problem with assumption is that your client may cleverly base the commission on the amount that he received instead of the total price of the property. So it's good to put this into writing so that your client cannot deny. Okay? Now, let us discuss about bank financing and pag-ibig financing. Bank financing means the lending institution is a bank to lend money to a borrower using the property as collateral and as security. Pag-ibig financing, the lending institution is its DMF, Home Development Mutual Fund, to lend money to a borrower using the property as collateral and as security. Bank is private, while pag-ibig is government-controlled, funded by all pag-ibig members. Foreigners are not allowed to loan from banks. Only corporation, which the foreigner is part owner, 40% share. What is in-house financing? In-house financing, the lending institution is the developer with options for payment scheme. Proof of income and other strict documentary requirements may not be enforced by the developers for their in-house financing. But in-house financing is usually higher in interest. For example, OPMC charges 14 interest per annum with first year no interest. So in case your buyer does not have enough documentary requirements, it's best to convince him to take in-house financing as his option. What is amortization? Amortization is paying off the loan amount over time in equal installments. Part of each payment goes toward the loan principal, and another part goes towards the interest. Amortization by standard practice is to be paid monthly. So it is called monthly amortization. But we just call it amortization for short. The longer the terms, the lesser the amortization. So as a salesperson, you play around with the terms of payment so your buyer can afford the amortization. What is terms of payment? It is the period of time which the buyer is allowed to pay off the amount due. If a buyer can hardly afford to pay the monthly amortization, try to make the terms longer, such as 30 years for Pag-ibig. The longer the terms, the lesser the monthly amortization. 1 year fixing offers the lowest interest, but the succeeding years may be higher in interest, so the monthly amortization could be higher. On the other hand, 10-year fixing or a 20-year fixing can assure the buyer that the monthly amortization will not increase, but the interest rate will also be higher all throughout the term of the loan. What is fixing rate? Fixing rate is the period in which the interest rate is fixed by the lending institution or unchanged regardless of factors affecting the economy. So it is an option. For example, 3 years fixing. It could be 6.99% for Pag-ibig. But for a 5-year fixing, it could be 8% plus interest. And for a 10-year fixing, usually 10% interest per annum immediately on the first year to be applied. So it's an option of the buyer. But we usually recommend 3-year fixing. What do we mean by paid up? Paid up means the condition that the required equity is paid by the buyer and documentary requirements are complete. When I was a salesperson, I was asked by my broker, is the sale paid up? He is actually interested in the release of the commission because once the equity or down payment is fully paid, developers normally release a big portion of the commission. What is loan takeout? It is a long-term mortgage loan of a buyer that is taking into effect. Thereby, the seller is entitled to loan proceeds. So, loan takeout is when the seller receives the loan release. Therefore, loan takeout means release of full commission. Loan approval is a commitment letter that announces the lender's commitment to offer financing to the buyer. But since the bank requires that the title should be in the name of the buyer before they can release the loan proceeds, on the part of the seller, he might also be hesitant because he wants to be paid in full before signing an agreement that he is willing to transfer the title in the name of the buyer. So, with this predicament, how can you convince the seller to have the title transferred even without full payment? And the answer is letter of guarantee. The beneficiary here is the seller, who shall receive the loan proceeds. So you have to emphasize that there's going to be a letter of guarantee from the bank that will ensure that the seller will be paid even though he signs the deed of absolute sale. What is deferred cash? Deferred cash is a short-term payment of the total contract price, while balloon payment is a form of payment where the final installment is greater than the preceding installment payments. Normally, developers offer 24 months deferred cash, no interest. The release of commission is based on when the buyer can meet the 20% payment requirement, which is estimated to be 5 months full commission. Balloon payment is a negotiated payment scheme for a reason, such as the buyer is not willing to pay the required monthly installment because the house or condo is still to be built. They want assurance. So, balloon payment could be an option. What is launching? Launching is to introduce the new project to the public. Launching is announcing to all buyers, salespersons, and even prospect buyers that the new project is ready for reservation. Usually, it is scheduled at the time that the developer has secured the license to sell. Open house is a scheduled period of time in which project is open to public viewing. Open house is a day where the project is open for public viewing, where the marketers team are there to help close the sale and also perk up some form of entertainment for the buyers. What is annotation? Annotation is the recording at the back of the title important events and status regarding the property. For example, liens, encumbrances, legal suits, and many other events regarding the property are noted at the back of the title, which is called annotation. Deed of restrictions are limitations written on a deed to restrict or control the occupancy or use of a property. It is advised that the salesperson or broker knows the basic deed of restrictions of any project so he can answer buyers' questions and can easily find ways to handle objections of buyers, especially if the deed of restriction seems too strict. The agent should focus on the benefit, why such deed of restriction is created. For example, alteration of the facades is not allowed, etc. The real estate value of the whole project is maintained. That could be the advantage also. And also another deed of restriction is the 9 meters maximum height. The setback, 3 meters in front, 2 meters at the sides, 2 meters at the back. And another deed of restriction is the commercial purpose not allowed, and so on and so forth. So deed of restrictions can be an advantage if you use it properly to convince your buyers. What is the difference between delinquent and default? Well, this is the difference. Delinquent is just late or undesirable payment of obligation, whereas default is the failure to fulfill a duty or promise to discharge an obligation. Delinquent is normally less than 3 months. Default is normally 3 consecutive non-payment of installment. Default can lead to cancellation of contract and the taking back of the property by the seller or developer. What is the difference between forfeiture and foreclosure? Forfeiture is the taking back of the property as penalty and cancellation of contract due to breach of obligation. This is the right of a developer whose name in the title is still in its name. It will just cancel the contract, forfeit, and take back the property. While foreclosure is a legal proceeding that bars or extinguishes a mortgager's right to redeem a mortgaged property. Since the title is normally in the name of the buyer, as in the case of a bank loan, foreclosure is the right process because buyers are given 1 year to redeem the property, but if the buyer cannot redeem by paying in full, the property is foreclosed. What is loan restructure? Loan restructure is to change or modify the contracted financing scheme for a certain purpose. This could be due to changes in the finances of the buyer over time. If substantial payment has been made and he is a good payer, loan restructure is allowed upon the request of the buyer. While redemption is the right to redeem the property during the foreclosure period. Redemption means the buyer has 1 year to pay in full before the lending institution can finally foreclose the property. Many distressed buyers use this 1 year redemption period to sell the property. That's the usual case. What is the difference between market value and zonal value? Market value means it is the highest price a property could get a willing buyer without abnormal stimulus or pressure, while zonal value is the value determined by BIR for payment of tax. Developers' prices are considered market value. When a seller of property sells, a buyer buys, the agreed amount is the market value. For zonal value, it is the BIR who determines the value of the lot per square meter depending on the location. You can find out the zonal value of any lot at the website of BIR at www.bir.gov.ph. Zonal value also determines the amount to be paid for capital gain tax when the property is sold. If the zonal value is higher than the market value or price agreed by buyer and seller, it's zonal value that will prevail in the collection of capital gain tax. So, the principle or policy used by BIR is whichever is higher. If zonal value is higher, then that will be the basis for the computation of tax. If the market value is higher, then the market value is going to be used as a basis for the computation of taxes. What is the difference between assessment value and appraisal value. Assessment value is the value determined by the real estate assessor, whereas appraised value is the value determined by an appraiser. You will see this assessment value at your tax declaration after the assessor has assessed your property. Appraisal value is also one consideration of the lender to determine the loan value of the property. Loan value should be lower than appraisal value to ensure that the lender can resell the property at a price that can pay back the amount loaned. I'm sure you are already familiar with appreciation and depreciation, but we will just review it so you can understand them better. Okay, appreciation is the increase of value of real estate property over time, whereas depreciation is the loss in value due to physical deterioration, functional obsolescence, or economic obsolescence. This is the reason why a lot of people, even though they have no plans to build a house yet, they park their money on land because the land appreciates in value much faster than the rate of interest in the bank. Santa Lucia, for example, increases its price at least twice a year by as much as 7% per increase. That would be at least 14% compared to interest rates of bonds, which you can find only less than 1% per annum. See the difference? And on the other hand, depreciation is applicable to house or condo, but not for lot properties, because lot properties do not depreciate. Certificate authorizing registration, or CAR, is in effect a tax clearance issued by the BIR relative to the transfer of real estate properties. This is the objective of every processor of documents. The CAR, because this is the main requirement by the Register of Deeds in the transfer of title. But in applying for the CAR, numerous documents are required: deed of sale, payment of capital gain tax, tax clearance, etc., etc. But if you just focus on selling developers' project, all of these tasks will be done by the developer or the marketing arm of the developer. No hassles on your part. What is vicinity map? Vicinity map is a map which shows the general location of the property and its position in the nearest landmark or major street or highway. Most developers of land always have vicinity map, so you should ask for it. A phase is the biggest part of a subdivision, containing an area of not less than 10 hectares composed of blocks and identified by numbers. And under a phase is called block. And a block is a group of lots under a phase. A block is a group of individual lots that is independent and not connected with other blocks. They are connected only by the roads between them. Lot area is the size of a lot in terms of square meters. Lot area is the quantity of lot, and it determines the price by multiplying it with the price per square meter. The average size of the lot area will also determine whether the place is high-end, middle-end, or low-cost. Subdivision map. A subdivision map is a plan showing the general features and layout of the subdivision, including blocks and lots and open spaces. Every subdivision map should have the phase number, block number, lot number, and lot area written in the map. You must familiarize yourself with the subdivision map as you will have to orient your buyer all the features of the lot and its exact location and area within the subdivision. Ideally, it should also have the direction where the north is located, as well as the east, west, and south. But if the subdivision map has no direction of the north, you must ask the developer and make the marking yourself. Okay? Now let us discuss lot plan, because this is one of those items that buyers would always ask. What is lot plan? It is a top-down orientation or technical drawing of the position of the roads connected to the lot, showing the lot dimensions, the boundaries, setbacks, and right of way. Buyers usually ask for lot dimensions before buying. But the problem is that Santa Lucia requires reservation first, plus 4,000 cost of relocation survey, plus 2,000 lot plan. An alternative is to convince the buyer that you can just estimate the lot dimensions. I will teach you how to estimate dimensions. This will be a separate subject that we can take up later on because it is lengthy. It's actually the main job of the surveyor, and I have learned by experience how to do this job. Okay? Uphill. Uphill is a type of sloping lot where the front side of the lot is at the lower level, while the back side of the lot is at a higher level of the slope. This is an example of a lot that is uphill, taken from Greenville Heights, Consolacion. Okay. Downhill is a type of sloping lot where the front side of the lot is at the higher level, while the back side of the lot is at a lower level of the slope. This is an example of a downhill, and this is located in Vista Grande, Talisay City. The best advantage for downhill is this spectacular overlooking view. So it's up for the buyer to decide whether he wants a downhill or an uphill. Cul-de-sac. A cul-de-sac is a road where one end is blocked. It's a dead end. For example, you can see here, these lots are called cul-de-sac lots. And this is a dead end where the car can move around, and entrance and exit are just here. Cul-de-sac is preferred by developers as it can produce more lots to sell. Plus, the car can just move around the circle for convenience in driving. The disadvantage is that the lot may not be desirable in shape. The lots usually are the last to sell on the cul-de-sac, but eventually they will be sold out. Retaining wall. Retaining wall is a structure designed and constructed to resist the lateral pressure of soil when there is a desired change in ground elevation that exceeds the angle of repose of the soil. Many buyers avoid lots that are adjacent to the river because they will be forced to build a retaining wall to prevent soil erosion, and this is quite expensive. So this is an example of retaining wall. Riprap. Riprap is a man-placed rock or other materials used to armor shorelines against water and soil erosion. Riprap is another way of preventing soil erosion by placing rocks and solid materials in between the soil and the seashore. What is a setback? A setback is the minimum distance which a building or other structures must be positioned from the road. The standard is 3 meters setback in front from the house to the road, 2 meters from each side, and 2 meters at the back. The lot after your fence up to the side of the road is your easement. This is the right of one person to use the real estate of another, or a portion of it for certain purposes, such as to observe distance in compliance of the building code. What's the difference between features and amenities? Features means the distinctive characteristics of a thing that sets them apart for other similar things, while amenities are the desirable or useful features or facilities of a building or place that provides comfort, convenience, and pleasure. Oftentimes, they go together, which we call it features and amenities. Clubhouse. Clubhouse is a building where members of a club or homeowners association meet and have some social events. While landscape is the features of a given area of land, where the area of land has been improved by carefully designed planting and arrangement. For example, landscape, entrance, and guardhouse. Property line. Property line is the boundary line that separates one property from another. Oftentimes, your buyer would ask you, up to where is my property? And you can reply by saying, this marker here, sir, is your property line. Beyond this property line is your neighbor's line. Terrain. Terrain is the physical features of an area of land, its shape, its slope, and its physical attributes. For example, what's the terrain of the lot? Is it highly sloping? Is it rough, mountainous, rectangular in shape, and full of bushes and wild grass? So that's the terrain. Lot facing. Many of your buyers would be interested on where the lot is facing. A lot of them, in my experience, want a morning sun. And the morning sun means facing east. Lot facing is where the frontage adjacent to the road is facing, either east, west, north, or south. Or it could be a combination like northeast, southwest, etc. if it is not facing directly. Feng Shui is a traditional practice originating from ancient China, which claims to use energy forces to harmonize individuals with their surrounding environment. There are buyers who believe in feng shui, so facing east is desirable for them. Lot dimension. Lot dimension is usually in terms of length times width, but that is for regular lots, square or rectangular. But there are irregular lots, so we can define lot dimension as how the lot is measured in terms of meters from one technical point of a survey to another within the boundary line that would comprise a total area of the lot in terms of square meters. And what is corner of influence? It is the added desirability or utility of a property due to its frontage of two streets, which provides better ventilation. In short, we call it corner lot. Normally, it has higher price, but even though it's higher, it's the most saleable. So be alert of availability of corner lots so you can offer them immediately to your prospect buyers. Corner lots are priced higher in Santa Lucia by a standard of 500 pesos or more per square meter. Relocation survey involves the precise identification of established land and its corners to re-establish boundaries. The cost of the lot survey in Santa Lucia is 4,000 per lot. To build a house, this is required, but you need to start building not more than 1 month from the date of the survey. If longer, buyer needs to reapply for relocation survey. What is monument? Monument is a marker popularly called mohon, erected by the surveyor at various points comprising the lot. Surveyor. Surveyor is someone who estimates or measures the dimensions of land. Top off means the construction has reached the highest floor of a building. It means you can climb up to the highest floor as planned, though it still needs more time for finishing. For example, 30th floor. You can climb to the 30th floor, even no finishing yet, no elevator. We will be topped off by 2021 August. Okay, that's an example of top off. So my presentation has reached the top off because we are going to conclude in a few moments. Completion is the stage wherein all finishings, including occupancy permits, etc., are done and the building is ready for occupancy. While turnover is the actual delivery of the unit to the buyer after completion of all requirements for move-in. So at this time, I'm happy that we have completed our lessons on the real estate terminologies, and you have learned over 100 terms. Rest assured that I will send you a copy of this PowerPoint by email so you can review. And I'm sure that you will be able to use these terms as your arsenal and ammunition to improve your ability and skills in servicing your buyers. which means more buyers and more sales for you.